This is the Modern Mastery Unleashed podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another extraordinary episode of Modern Self-Mastery Unleashed. You have Paul Davidson and myself, Natalia, Edelmann, and we are here to delve into Rise and Shine, talking about rituals. And it's really funny because earlier, before we were coming on, Paul and I were talking, well, is it rituals or is it habits? And we're gonna get into this a little bit, but we really want to delve in the world of daily rituals, specifically morning rituals, evening rituals. If you have rituals that you do, we'd love for you to let us know in the comments. And these are really some of the secret ingredients to unlocking your full potential and living a life of purpose, productivity, and intentionality. All of the things that we are about here at Modern Self-Mastery Unleashed. So why don't we get started? Paul, let me ask you, why do you think some people struggle with establishing rituals? Or maybe we should even take a step back and say, well, what are rituals in the first place?
Yeah, so from my own personal painful experience, when I've struggled to put any type of ritual, habit, or routine in place, it's because I didn't have a vision of where I was going to start with. And so taking a few steps even further back, it probably resonates because I think it's woven into our being as human beings to want to be the best we can be, because we always want to grow and evolve and be as best so we can be, do, have all that we can be. That's in our nature to do that, to expand and stretch out as far as we can. But I think a lot of people are searching for that thing to put all of themselves into. I did a post about it whilst I was warming up in the gym, and I felt rather strong. I did. I felt in the pocket. Do you know when you write something and you feel such a burst of energy? And I wrote something like, you're not seeking entertainment. You're seeking for the one thing you can put all of yourself into that you find meaningful. And I think that's it. I've searched for that, and I've been in a whole world of pain. I had been for quite some time, and I couldn't quite figure that out, and it became like such a big deal. And I felt that was such a blocker, because then if I was trying to create a ritual or routine to set me up to win, I didn't really know for what purpose. And I think that's the same when we're trying to be disciplined for something. So for what?
Yeah.
So it's okay when you're in alignment, isn't it? It's like okay, because it's like the weight's off now. But I think if you don't know what that is, your purpose is to be all you can be, because your gift to yourself and the world is becoming all you can be, like physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, mind, body, soul, because equally those measures need to be expanded so you can be all you can be. And that involves also wealth, because in the world we live in, we require the use of things to expand and grow, and those things also cost money. So there's a whole host of things going on here, but we all want to expand and grow and build a financial wall around our family that nothing could touch. So I think you have to hit that white moment, don't you? I think so. It's like a bit of a Trojan horse, this episode. You know, we're talking about your full potential and daily rituals, but
yeah.
for me personally, I was kind of like, yeah, okay, but what am I creating that for? And it's a painful place. Like if you don't know where you're going, and like any wind will take you there. It's like, you know, you don't know where, no idea what you're doing it for. But I think when you have a purpose of, okay, well, what's the first step? What am I struggling with most in my life right now? To aid anybody who's in that painful place of transition, and you just can't get a routine going, you just can't get consistent, and you're frustrated with it. It's okay. Well, what are you struggling with right now, right in front of you? What is that? Is it health? Is it finances? Is it relationships? You know, is it inner peace that you're struggling with? You're just unhappy. You know, what is that thing? And then what's most important to you, and just pick one. And then I think it's just useful to think, okay, and just journal it out. I'm struggling with that. Well, what advice would I give to myself? How could I solve that problem? What resources, like what book could I read? What could I do? And put that as part of like a morning ritual, carve out some time to you. And
Oh yeah.
you need some you time. You need to have a morning meeting, not with the team, but with yourself. I mean, that's for me, like mornings are just the best, you know, whilst the world is sleeping, whilst my neighborhood is asleep. I'm creating a ritual that just makes me feel like nothing else, because keeping the promises I make to myself in line with my vision, purpose, actions, how I'm feeling, because of the actions I've taken, not because do I feel like it or not. If I feel like it, I'd do it. But it's that thing that we were talking about, weren't we? And I saw that you posted about, are you interested or committed? But again, it's like, if you're going to turn pro, it's like, well, what's the thing you're going to turn pro about? What does it mean? What are the reasons? What matters to you when you get to the end of your life? Let's tie it up. You know, what does it mean? What's going to be a massive regret for you at the end of your life if you don't achieve? How do you want to be thought of? And just tie that up with where you are. Like, what is that gap? But I think it's useful to think, not to jump too far ahead, but like, what are you struggling with right now? And what could you do to assist it? Because it's responsibility. It's like if you had an illness, and you know, the doctor said, would you like to take full responsibility? You said, well, no, it's not my fault that I'm ill. It's just my body. It's not, but he could explain, well, no, I don't mean that, but it means your ability to respond.
Yeah.
Now, what would you like? Oh, well, absolutely, I'll take full responsibility. So if you think, okay, what am I struggling with right now? What's the thing that's really hurting me? You know, what's really hurting? And then just journal it out. What advice would you give yourself? How would you coach yourself?
Yeah.
Because you more than likely hold the beginning of an answer to start getting out of it. And you can create a ritual about that thing. Well, that's okay. Well, tomorrow I'm just going to research books, YouTube videos on solving that problem. We can start building momentum. But I think that's the beginning of it, is why is the ritual there anyhow? But it's self-expansion and self-mastery ultimately, because all roads lead back to self, which was a very long answer for the question.
You know, this is why I love these conversations, though, is because we can start with one thing, but actually it permeates into these other areas. And you said a lot there, and a lot of what we've kind of been speaking about since we started the podcast for almost, I guess it's been like over a month now, which is amazing. But, you know, you talk about vision, like you don't know where you're going. And it's funny, I actually posted this quote today, and it's by Yogi Berra, who is a baseball player. But he said, you know, you've got to be very careful if you don't know where you're going, because you might not get there. And if you think about Alice in Wonderland. So,
Yeah.
when she's talking to the Cheshire Cat and she said she suddenly has no path to follow, and she's like, I don't know where I'm going. And the Cheshire Cat's like, well, where do you need to go? And she's like, well, I don't know, just anywhere but here, or something like that. I'm totally paraphrasing, but you know what I mean. And I think it's kind of like that. It's like, well, then it doesn't really matter it doesn't really matter what path you're on then, because you don't know where you're going. And, I'll bring it back to the navigational system. Like, you have to have a starting point and an end point. And I don't want to kind of repeat what we've talked about in previous episodes, but it is really important to know, where am I? Where am I with my health? Like you said, health, relationships, my career, business, my spirituality, in the sense of, like, I'm not talking about religion here. I'm talking about, the something bigger than us. And, fun, and, are you taking life too seriously? Like, there's about 8 different, life elements that I'm talking about specifically. And we will make this available at some point. I don't know if it's going to be, behind the scenes, because we're planning on releasing some extra content in a private members area. But, it's that assessment, right? It's like, let me just take stock of where I am. What's going really well? How do I feel? How satisfied am I? You talked about meaningful, and purpose. And I'm a strong believer that your purpose is you. And I think when you believe, or you feel lost, or you're trying to find this purpose, you're trying to find yourself. You're actually on this huge journey of self-discovery. And it's that when you finally feel like you know yourself, you know where you're at, you know your values, you know what matters to you, you know why you're doing anything, then it all becomes so clear. And you're just like, wow, that wasn't that complicated. I'm no longer feeling fatigued or overwhelmed. And it is really important to think of, if you want more, like, where's your motivation? What obstacles are in your way? What resources do you have? And then it's the execution part, which we taught, which, is the whole thing of this, of why we're here. Because we want you to execute. We don't just want you to think about it in your mind, or, live in this perpetual, oh gosh, I don't know what's happening. And as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as ambitious people, we do sometimes get in our own way, and we need those, like, pauses, like you said, to just take a moment and step back. Like, everyone is only human. You are bound to hit those low vibrational points, and it can be triggered by a life event, or something quite obvious like that, like a relationship breakdown, a death in the family. But sometimes it's less obvious. It's like, oh, this pain, or like in my body, it's like, where is this pain coming from all of a sudden? Or I'm having lots of headaches, or, I can't sleep. Like, these things are signals for you guys, and you have to really pay attention to how you're paying attention. And it's so that's kind of where we're at right now. So rituals, we say, it's like, the rituals are the path almost. They're this collective of habits, if you will. It's a routine. It's not, and we'll get into habits next week, but maybe we'll give you some practical examples of what a ritual looks like. I'll share mine, but Paul, go ahead and share yours if you want to first. Then I'll jump in, and if you guys have anything that you want to add, feel free to go ahead and add in the comments.
Well, I'm the master of overcomplication, and so I tried to overcomplicate this and adopt many other people's in my time, and most of the people who talk about the morning routines that they practice don't actually. by the way. I found out. So,
Spoiler alert.
spoiler alert. And so I think it's about what is it for? What is the purpose of it? And it's to set you up to win. So this may be very unique to you. And if you don't know what you want, let's look at the opposites. So, okay, because I think it's easier sometimes to start with what don't I want? Well, I don't want low energy. I don't want brain fog. I don't want to be unfocused because I can't get anything done. I don't want to be in low mood and have negative emotions. Okay, so what's the counteraction of that? And I think if your life is not adding up as you think it should, start subtracting.
Ooh.
So let's just take away. Let's do the Michelangelo story. I like this story. I like a quote as well, as you might know. But when they asked Michelangelo, how did you carve such a beautiful statue of David out of marble? He said, I didn't carve David. I removed everything that wasn't David. Mm. And I think that's so powerful. Goosebumps all over again every time I mention that. Which must be for a reason, I'm guessing. But it's just removing everything that isn't you. So you think, okay, what does that look like? Well, I want to show appreciation to the people around me that I love, that have been with me, that I really appreciate, that you never really show it. So for me, showing appreciation is an important thing. That might be a message, that might be writing a post-it note for my wife and leaving it somewhere that she might find it. That might be a message to my niece or a message of somebody who's a friend. I'm just saying, look, just thinking of you, just appreciate you being there. So something like that. And to receive a message like that is unbelievable. You get a double hit. So it's a real high performance habit, because for energy, this will kick you into gear. So the times that I've suffered probably the most is when I'm so in my own head, thinking about me. I think sometimes it's a really nice thing to have in your morning ritual, just to send out a message of appreciation to somebody. I think that's a really good start. And then something that I've struggled with a lot in my time has been gratitude. So I used to struggle to get into the feeling of gratitude. But the other morning I felt it so deeply, I was a mess. So when I actually got super deep into it, just thinking about the clothes that I'm wearing, the table that I sit at, the sofa I'm sitting on, the room that I'm in, the breath in my lungs, just super powerful things. And that can just be 2 or 3 things that you deeply appreciate. So if you struggle with gratitude, this might help. And that's to think of the anti version of it, which means, oh, I feel so grateful for the home I live in, right? What if it wasn't there? It's no longer there and you no longer have it. Now think about the thing that you're thinking about. Think about it no longer being there. Or as a future friend of mine, Alex Hormozy, was speaking about, was the grandfather frame, because he's always struggled with gratitude, but he uses what he calls the grandfather frame, which I really like. So he thinks about himself projected as an 85-year-old who's no longer in this situation or a problem that you're facing that's really stressing you out. And he thinks, like, the 85-year-old version of myself would laugh at this. When you expand the time horizon by so far and you zoom out, it's relatively insignificant. And this massive event may well be a net win when you expand the time horizon long enough, just by zooming out and not making it so heavy. And I know some things are heavy right in the moment, I know that, but just to gain perspective, that you would give anything to be back in that situation again when you're 85 years old. You see it again with fresh eyes. And so just two things there if you struggle with a gratitude practice, but deeply feeling gratitude, showing appreciation, and the night before understanding what my priorities are. And the thing that I really don't want to do, or is the most lever moving thing that's for me personally, which might be in my business or obviously meditation's part of what I do, but it's lever moving task will go as early as possible in the day. So I've tried it every which way but loose. And the longer I leave it in the day, my energy levels get lower and you start to die of 1,000 cuts. And that's why a morning routine is crucial. So that's putting on my mental and emotional armor for the day. So when my morning routine is strong, I feel strong. When my morning routine is weak, I feel weak. And you're more susceptible to die of 1,000 cuts during the day. So this is you preparing. So monks spend half of the day on self and half of the day on service, which I think is a beautiful way to live. So I think that bit of morning, even if you only have half an hour, could you spend 5 minutes on gratitude, 2 minutes sending out a message, 5 minutes of silence meditation. Silence meditation I like. It's taken me some time to get into that practice, but I can do it anywhere now without the aid of anything, but just being present with myself. Know thyself, right? Meditation. Yeah. So I want to come home to me and what's important to me and let messages come through and just get to know where I am before I want to get up and do. I want to overcome myself, because if there's no enemy within, there is no enemy without. So if I can overcome myself and tame the animal that wants to get up and do, then I've overcome myself in the day and I can be in more peace. So I want to be peaceful. I want to be in good humor, and I want to know what my priority is, which is set the night before. Workout clothes are laid out the night before for the day. So I know what I'm doing. A liter of water.
Not before bed, though, right?
Not before bed. That's in the morning.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, but yeah, I mean that's part of it. So it's not massively complicated, and I do some cold immersion, but which could involve a cold shower or plunge if you've got anything like that around. But that's an important part of it, just because I want to change my state and I want a huge dopamine hit which will last for hours and hours and hours, and it's something I really don't like to do, and it caused me a huge amount of fear. So when I do that, I can do anything, because there's not many things that's during the day that's harder than that. So I really like to have dominion over the body and to do things whether I feel like it or not, which is self-discipline, which is self-care, of course, but that forms part of it. It's not to overcomplicate it. You don't need a whole hour of work. And I think it just depends on where you are. Like if you've got 15 minutes, then make a good 15-minute routine that's going to set you up better than where you are now. And I don't think it's turning your life upside down. It's like, what incremental change can you make? Can you carve out 15 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, but that just involves going to bed a bit earlier. And that's where you start to understand what commitment cost is. It's like, is that 45 minutes of Netflix giving you the benefit? If it's not, and it's just avoidance, it might be getting up earlier in the morning and spending some time with yourself and getting to just coming back to who you are and what's important to you and acting on those things, and start working on that side hustle, start working on that fitness program, start working on the solutions and courses and books to help solve the problem you're in. The momentum you gain from that cannot be bought. And I can't explain how that makes me feel. To make progress like that is just immeasurable, really. Just keeping those promises you make to yourself, and you start getting a bit of momentum. And it might not feel like anything's happening for 3 weeks, But all of a sudden the stars align and something happens and you feel very different. And I felt that when you embark on this journey, wherever people are, of like personal development and personal growth, is that you may well not fit in. You may not fit in because you'll start to think and act differently, and you start thinking about what you think about, a bit of metacognition, and you start minding your language and what you're saying and the stories you're telling yourself you no longer accept. And you think, no, I want more out of life. I want more for my family, and I want to burn my torch bright whilst I'm here and leave it all out on the table. And something's changed. And I think that comes back to that beautiful post that you shared the other day with Brené Brown, which I'd watched the same morning and thought, wow. And it was amazing because you shared it, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And that's true. And I think that's our job in life, which is modern self-mastery. Absolutely. Yeah. Is that you're born into perfection, conditioned into mediocre. Through micro and macro trauma, we build up all these armored structures that protect us. And then it gets to a point where all of that armor and protection is hindering you, and it's no longer helping you. It keeps you from being seen. It keeps you from being the partner, the business owner, the employee, the mother or father that you can truly be. And there is a brutal unraveling which happens, and it comes to that point where you kind of think, well, actually, all this stuff that I've accrued is not really who I am anymore. And I totally get that. You start coming home and you start shedding the layers back to who you really are. And I think that's the pattern of life, isn't it? You're born into perfection. You do what you want. You throw on what you want to wear, and you have your interests that absolutely light you up, and you don't care. And then you pick up all of this conditioning and micro and macro trauma, and you build all these structures. All these layers go on, and then it's unraveling and unlearning all this stuff, isn't it? So when we think about habits and rituals and routines, a lot of it's about just coming home, isn't it? Yeah. Which is so powerful, isn't it? I mean, you're the master of retreats and coming home, spending time with you. It's so powerful. It sounds fluffy, but it really isn't. I think people struggle to spend half an hour with themselves because you're constantly avoiding. Like, all focus management is pain management, right? You're avoiding yourself. You're avoiding something. So I think the obstacle is the way, and holding the mirror up to yourself is hard to start with, but you have an awakening, and it's powerful. You strike a primal power inside of you that's an unlimited energy source when you find out what really matters and come home to you. But again, a very long answer to a question. My apologies.
No, I think there was so much gold in there, and I really do appreciate you just expanding on it, because we're not just here to sort of pose a question and then, oh, here's your answer. It's like, well, actually it's so much more than that. And it really does take this, I'm not even sure if I have the right words to describe it yet, but it is that, like, coming home to yourself, and I, like, it was from this post today, but it's, I said, it's not about reinventing yourself. And I think I heard this once, like, oh, you reinvent yourself 7 times or something like that over your lifetime. But actually, I think you reclaim a little bit more of yourself every time that you experience this lull, and then this opportunity to reflect and be with yourself and check in and reestablish, what is my vision? What do I want? What is my purpose? Who am I? It's not there's nothing wrong with you there. You don't have to change anything about you. You just have to step into who you really are. And I think that gets really clear as you evolve, and
Totally.
it's always, I love how you brought in the grandfather piece, because that's the same as having conversations with your future self.
Yeah.
What would your future self say to you right now? What would you tell your younger self? And that reflection is really interesting, because I mean, there are lots of times when I was growing up, and I'm sure you could say the same, where you feel like the sky is falling and you're like, how am I going to get through this? And this is the worst ever. And actually, looking back, not so bad. And I needed to go through that because I needed to get out of that relationship, or I needed to not stay in that job. I needed to go and travel the world. And, we always come back to this life happening for you and not to you. And it does have an interesting way of presenting opportunities, but it has the opportunities get that much more fun when you get clear on what it is that you want. And I love that we talked about rituals being not just rituals, but the why behind it. And, the obstacles in terms of why don't you have rituals is a reflection back to you to say, well, maybe it's because I don't know where I'm going, or maybe it's because I don't know what matters to me anymore, or there's been a significant change, or I want more, I'm ready, or, I don't know if you ever feel ready, but you are all the time. And that's why these challenges come up. And, you talked a lot about morning rituals and evening rituals, and I won't add too much more because I think you and I share a few, but I loved the coming to what these rituals can be as a means to, why are you doing what you're doing? What are you here to accomplish? I know, I'll just give you a really quick example, but for me, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I used to say yes to absolutely everything. And there is that paradigm, right? What you say yes to, what do you say no to? And vice versa. What do you say no? What you're saying no for? What are you saying yes to? What's the flip? And the morning is absolutely sacred, because the minute I look at my phone and read an email, or it's over. Now that's no longer my day, and I'm really strict about just waking up in gratitude, like you were saying. That's also how I like to start my mornings. I like to move my body. So whether that's a stretch, because I've struggled with really bad hip pain in the past, and it's because I was either sedentary, like sitting too long, or for women especially, we keep our emotions in our hips. And I used to just hold in a lot because I just, I didn't know how to express myself. Like, I actually used to have a huge fear of public speaking. You may not believe that, but it's true. And so I always make sure to move my body, because that's how I feel present. That's how I incorporate breath work. And that's from my yoga retreat days, teaching days. But it's so, I love this being with yourself for that first part of the morning as much as you can. I know that some of us are busy. We have families, there's kids running around, but 5 minutes. Yeah. And if you can't find that 5 minutes, who can you ask for help for? What are the resources? Don't just say, I don't have anybody to help me, or I don't have this time. Like, wake up a little earlier, and I know that can be hard, but you will feel so much better. And I think that's what we're all about, is, redefining that success to be what do you want to feel like today? Don't worry about the money and all the rest of it. That will come. But what is success for you? And how do you set yourself up for success? It's through taking care of yourself. It's through protecting your energy, and not giving all of you to your business or your family. Like, you need to give yourself a lot. And I think there's some of us that struggle with that, and that's okay. That's why we're here. But yeah, I think we'll end it on that note, unless you had anything to add.
Oh, and I think you said a massive amount of stuff, and actually reminded myself of what I do automatically that I hadn't mentioned, which is breath work and visualization.
Yeah.
But I work out, of course, because I feel I have to exert my mind and my body every day to be who I am. And one of the most important habits of a morning ritual is, because I don't even think about it now, I'd forgotten it. And that is not looking at your phone for the first 30 minutes of the day, because that is crucial. You get into, well, I get into comparison straight away. And it's funny, we never compare down. We're always comparing it. We don't think, oh, well, actually, I'm much further ahead than that person, or or our ego kicks in, and comparison is the thief of joy, and that's true. So that's been a massive change in my life. It allows my creative process to start of being with myself. At the moment I pick that thing up, it's never typically anything super positive, not often. But of course it is, if you pick it up and someone's popped you a message for just being you, those things stick around for people for weeks and months, or they never forget it. And it's so important. It's
I love that.
Yeah, it's a really lovely thing. And but yeah, I mean, obviously we said an awful lot there, but I think it comes back to, again, how do you want to feel? Not just a routine for the sake of a ritual, or a ritual for the sake of a ritual, but how do you want to live? How do you want to feel? And understanding that spending that time with yourself, you're strengthening and fortifying who you are, so that you don't give your power away all day. You don't have the tail wagging the dog. That's the idea of self-mastery, self-control, so that you think, I've got everything at arm's length, and I'm not allowing that to come in and piss me off. Because that person hasn't pissed me off. I've allowed myself to piss myself off.
Yeah.
That person hasn't. I've allowed it to come in. So you start becoming a bit more calmer and having a bit more inner peace. And I heard once that people don't want peace of mind, they want peace from mind.
Oh.
So it's really nice to just have that bit more inner calm when things are going on, and you're the calm in the storm. And I feel like having that sacred time in the morning is really good, because location has energy and time has memory, right? So, so you have a location, a little piece, a little part of your house where you just spend that time with yourself, or you journal your thoughts, or whatever that looks like to you. To start with, it's just sort of start small, and just come back home slowly, and it's just transformative, really. But yeah, I think you said a massive amount there that's really, really important. Like I said, every sort of evolution where you feel like nothing's working and you're trying hard and nothing's working, it is working.
Yeah.
If you're asking that question, you have consciousness. And I think I was unconscious well into my 30s. Totally unconscious. So
it's that autopilot, like being on autopilot, and
just unaware.
And I just wanted to interject there, because we had similar awakenings in a way, but it's like I left my corporate job because I needed to feel that alive again. Like, you just felt so disenchanted and just like, what, how did I get here? And, we'll dive into our stories maybe another day, but
Sure.
yeah, like, sorry, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but.
Oh, no, I think it's such a good point, isn't it? Because what kicked that on for me is that I knew I wanted to live. I didn't want to exist.
Yes.
And I think to raise the collective consciousness of people so that you awaken and you self-actualize much quicker and speed up that process, that's really important. Because I think in life, like you were quite rightly saying, which is a massive point, if you choose this thing, you can't do that, because we don't get to split test life. So in life, we must choose our regrets.
Yeah.
So, it's like, well, do I go to the gym or the theme park with the family? So one might, well, but to go to the gym, fine. But you might always wonder, do I go to what happened if I went to the theme park? So it's choosing your regrets and understanding that. I think the price is easy if the promise is clear. And I think we don't always know what the promise is. And again, we come back to vision that you are the purpose, and wherever you go, you're there. So you are the purpose. Absolutely. But yeah, thank you. That was an absolutely excellent session. And hopefully people listening or watching would have taken something they can action to improve their lives there. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, it was amazing. Well, thanks everybody. We'll be back next week, and we are going to be talking about habits. So it's going to be different than rituals, and you'll have to tune in to learn why. So have a great rest of your day, evening, morning, whenever you're listening to this, and we'll see you next time.